Hey guys, this is Justin, hello, and welcome to another video, and we're returning to the Eckhart's Ladder Conspiracy Corner today, but rather than steel beams, we are continuing our UFO talk. For those who missed the last video, I guess I'll call it UFO community has been recently reinvigorated by a series of very public events, including most notably the testimony of one David Grush, former U.S. intelligence officer, where he testified that he's been told about the existence of non-human life and various UFO retrieval programs. Now, I made my stance on all this pretty clear. I do believe aliens exist. I do not believe that aliens have ever visited Earth or that they are routinely being shot down. However, I'm not dismissive of the possibility. I just, at least personally, need to see some actual concrete first-hand evidence. I'm talking photos without an ambiguous source. Like, seeing an unknown entity in the sky is interesting, but for me to truly believe it's aliens, there either needs to be an up-close look at the spaceship or little green men. But did we recently get evidence of not only aliens, but aliens performing something extraordinary? Well, Reddit has rediscovered a video which originally appeared in 2014, which purports to show from multiple angles a trio of UFOs, and I'll just put this scientifically, sucking a big plane into a wormhole. There are two specific videos, one which appears to be from a drone, and a second which, again, purportedly is satellite footage. Somewhat remarkably, users on the UFO subreddit immediately connected this plane in this incident to Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. For those who don't know, in 2004, MH370 went missing somewhere over the Indian Ocean. Not going to go down the whole rabbit hole here, but the flight was erratic, there was loss of communication to air traffic control, and even to this day, the exact cause of MH370's destruction is unknown, with some speculating that it could have been the pilot, others speculating that it could have been hijacked. Either way, debris relating to the plane was seemingly found in the Indian Ocean, which was far southward of its intended route. The conspiracy theory here is, of course, that the plane being abducted by aliens is MH370, which is really the only way you could explain this phenomenon, because it's otherwise very hard to explain away an entire plane of people just disappearing. Even if it's a military plane, the people on board would have families. To say that the logic being used by the Redditors to connect MH370 to this plane and to verify, quote unquote, the footage as real was flimsy would be putting it extremely likely. I think that this situation, for those who watched it like I did, was a really good illustration of how communities can work themselves up in a sort of self-perpetuating cycle, kind of like a Boston bomber type of thing. Any information which seemed to support the video being real just generally were fully embraced, whereas any information pointing to it being a hoax was written off fully, completely ignored, or explained away with even the most elaborate theories. Additionally, anyone saying, hey, maybe don't take the UFO wormhole video so seriously was labeled as either a shill, a disinformation agent, or part of some great government psyop, which is really just wild. Anyway, if you go on r/UFOs, you yourself can read through the threads which they say support the theory that this was Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, but I will say there also was some impressive detective work done. One of the videos seems to have coordinates. It was within several hundred miles of MH370's flight path. The plane was directly identified as being of the same type. Redditors were able to corroborate the supposed satellite footage with real-world satellites, with the theory that it was recorded from NRO L32, which is a US-based reconnaissance satellite, and just generally there was a lot of interesting discussion regarding the nuances of the actual VFX. Still, like I mentioned, also I think a lack of critical thinking skills. A lot of people sort of acted like they didn't want to believe that this was real because it was so frightening, yet there were several, I think, indicators that it was a hoax straight up ignored, including the fact that the plane's thermals, to me at least, don't seem right. I would expect to see a warm cockpit, maybe exit door. I would expect the air which is running through the engines, especially as the plane is maneuvering to show up much hotter than it is. Early analysis showed that images behind the portal seemingly disappeared during frames of its animation, indicating that it was probably special effects. And just generally, when I see a video that is so ludicrous, my normal position is that I've got to be convinced by some pretty compelling evidence that this is real before I'm ready to believe. That, I think, is healthy skepticism. But I will say the footage itself is very compelling. I fully believe that this is a fake, but I'm not sure how the majority of it was done. Whether it was reusing existing footage, whether it's fully 3D, I'm not sure. I'm sort of going through a lot of this quickly, but there were a lot of details, I think, including little aspects of the UFO's movements, some of the lighting conditions, etc., which I thought showed, at the very least, a lot of care by the person who was making the video. But also, many VFX artists also came forward and said, yeah, this is probably something that could have been done even in 2014. But there's sort of an effect on a community when one person says that, oh, this matches the science so well, or this matches every single aspect of the military technology so well, that people will latch onto that and ignore any other inconsistencies. Anyway, I believe it was yesterday evening it was discovered that the portal effect is actually one of the dead giveaways of this being fake, other than it being aliens grabbing an aircraft and taking it into a wormhole, that is. It is a sort of stock animation which has been used in plenty of media, including Diablo, for example. And of course, even this isn't enough to convince people, but if you look at the effect, I mean, it's obvious. Even now, though, people on the subreddit, the conspiracy theorists, are saying, oh, this was a disinformation campaign from the start. It's distracting the UFO community from greater things, as if they themselves weren't the ones rediscovering a video from 2014, which had already been rigorously debated almost a decade ago. The only way that this is part of a government disinformation campaign is if they're also lacing the drinking water with something which removes a person's ability to critically think. Like, a lot of people were coming at this with an open mind, and I don't think there's necessarily any harm in that. But I also think it's just ridiculous that the video being true or not were treated as equally likely, and not only that, there was a clear railroading in one specific direction. People got themselves worked up over this, and now they're blaming the government, which is just, it's funny to see. That's ignoring the fact that debris of the plane was found. There are other more plausible theories for what happened to it. And overall, I just sort of think this whole situation, more than anything, is a shame, because the UFO discussion it's interesting. The presence of alien life, scientifically, it's a fascinating discussion. And I do think that overly conspiratorial communities like this just overall hurt any sort of efforts in that area, even when there is crazy things happening in the mainstream, like the David Grush stuff, which, yeah, I don't believe in, but that's something I think that you can reasonably speculate on. Like, when the evidence you're using to support your theories include psychic readings and the community's listening to that, but not meteorologists pointing out that, hey, this is the wrong cloud type, and if the aircraft was flying as low as these clouds, then it wouldn't have a jet trail. Then I think you've got an issue. So what is the source? Well, my guess is that it was not someone just having a laugh, and it's not government disinformation. I think this was probably meant to be viral marketing for a movie or project that was eventually dropped after the MH370 tragedy. This was the era of the ARG. But those are just my thoughts. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was aliens and wormholes. Let me know your thoughts on all this and more down below.